Well, old friend, I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to start this, so I reckon I'll just pull up a chair here and we're going to have a little talk. You know, we've been friends for a lifetime, it seems. I mean, we both aged and we have a few wrinkles to show for it. And, well, after just a few days of trying to absorb and understand what has happened to you in recent years, I can't help but be reminded of the many sacrifices both men and women have made over the years to assure our freedom and the freedom to raise our families in safety, go to the church of our choice, do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, exercise our right to vote, and so on. Starting back, well, way back actually with my great-granddaddy. He was there in a great fight to keep our nation united. Then my granddaddy. He crawled in the trenches of Europe during World War I. He survived those awful chemical attacks of that war and came back home to resume his life as a poor dirt farmer, taking care of his family and raising 8 children. However, he was proud of the service and never considered the war his sacrifice. Rather, he considered it his duty to share in keeping our nation free. And my dad? Well, he was what we respectfully refer to as the greatest generation. One of my most vivid childhood memories is standing on the porch of our cotton mill tenant house with Mama, waving goodbye to him as he proudly took off to join the fight for freedom in the war to end all wars. Needless to say, this was not to be our last fight for freedom, but even though he was wounded and recuperated in a hospital in England, he returned to the battle to finish the fight for us. He came home a different but extremely proud man. He served with several of my uncles in that war, and until his dying day, he proudly displayed his Purple Heart and other medals. His old light jacket always hung in his closet, complete with all the stripes and patches that adorned it. Dad had to give up his job and left his wife and child to answer the call of freedom, but that was the right and only thing to do. Then my term came along. Yeah, I went to Korea, right at the tail end. What a place. Then I was called upon to go to a place called Vietnam. Of course, I answered the call and went with all those other men and women to the place nobody had ever heard of to fight for freedom. It was a hard battle, but I'm sure no harder than that of those before me. I came home to an unwelcoming public, turned against us by some celebrities sitting on a communist North Vietnamese ACAC gun. We were spat upon, looked down upon, called baby killers, and all because we dared answer the call of our nation and our forefathers to fight for what our country was all about. Needless to say, I still held my head high and beamed with pride because I did my duty when asked to. Duty, honor, and country means just what it says, and I am so thankful there were and still are those of us who always answered the call. After my turn, my son proudly served our country, followed by my grandson and granddaughter, all answering the call. You know what? They're serving to keep us free from tyranny and communist socialist domination. We've had millions serve the call, and we've had millions who refused to serve, but they certainly didn't refuse the handouts, and they sure didn't earn their own way. As I think back to my childhood, I can remember something called relief that was offered to my granddaddy. His response? That was taken from someone else, and I don't want anything that I didn't earn. Well, our country started doing more and more of that during my time in Vietnam, and we continue to have more people reaching for their handouts. It has continued to permeate our society until we have raised generations to believe that America is the land of free stuff instead of the land of the free. Now the so-called powers to be are allowing hordes of criminals, that's right, criminals. The very definition of illegal is a criminal act. They are allowed to invade our great nation with no constraints whatsoever, to take away jobs from hard-working, tax-paying Americans. Sure, our ancestors were from foreign nations, But they came in accordance with the immigration laws, and they came to be Americans, not hyphenated Americans trying to bring their country here. We've had many more battles, Desert Storm, back to Iraq, Afghanistan, and on, and still we have enough responsible young people to answer the call. Our problem is that so many folks actually believe our government is, well, actually a Santa Claus, and that it is perfectly right for the government to take from those who work hard and play by the rules and take care of their own, and give this to such a large segment of our population who actually refuse to work, refuse to accept their own responsibility, and who spend their lifetime on the free ride of wealth distribution. Of course, there are those among us who deserve our helping hand, and we need to give it to them. But there are far too many taking advantage of that sentiment and just going along for the free ride rather than exercise a little self-responsibility and dedication to the nation that provides their freedom. I don't really have an explanation for this, but somehow we've managed to let the freeloaders control who we have as supposed leaders, and it has got so that our only choices seem to be the lesser of two evils. Well, guess what? We blew it. Now it has turned the bow of our ship toward a socialist takeover, and unless we listen to the words of Thomas Jefferson and rise up against it, you, old friend, are lost forever. After all, we are a nation founded under God, with liberty and justice for all. It hurts me more than I can possibly say to watch you sail off in the wrong direction. I can only hope and pray that our citizens will come to their senses before it is too late. I have to say, old friend, I don't even recognize you as America anymore. Heck, you don't even recognize yourself. Now we have the minority controlling the majority. We have folks rewriting the sacred Bible to make it fit their lifestyle instead of fitting their lifestyle to the Word of God. We have a countless number of politicians and elected officials rewriting our founding documents to change our Constitution. We have criminals getting better treatment than the victims. We have killed over 50 million citizens, and we have acquiesced to the rule of foreign nations over our sovereign nation. And the list goes on and on. Now, unless you change your ways, and change them soon, all that's left is the sadness of these parting words to my lifelong best friend. Goodbye, old friend. Goodbye, America.